Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to get started on Turo. First, I'm going to give you a list of things you're going to need to have on hand. Then we'll go step by step through the account and profile creation process, where I'll give you a ton of tips on how to best optimize your profile for the most success. If you don't know what Turo is, it's a car sharing platform that lets you rent out your cars to others. So it's a great way to make some extra cash renting out your car. So hopefully you've seen my prior video where I explained some of the things you need to research before you get started to make sure that Turo is a viable option for you. And if you haven't, please check out that video first, just so you're not wasting your time, because Turo just may not be an option for everyone, as I explained in that video. So I do want to mention a few other quick things that I should have added to the other video, because it's some requirements that Turo has about the actual car. So Turo requires that the car be no more than 12 years old, and there's some exceptions for some specialty cars. Have fewer than 130,000 miles, have a clean title, so not branded or salvage titles, and the car has to have never been declared a total loss. Okay, so if you've done your research, then let's get started. And feel free to jump around if you've done some of these parts already. In order to create a Turo host account, there's going to be a list of things you're going to need. So I'm going to give you that list first, and if you'd like to follow along with me, then I suggest that you pause the video and go gather everything and then come back. So here's a list of what you're going to need. You're going to need some car information. So the tag number, the VIN number, the odometer, the transmission, the trim, and also where the car is going to be located. So all of this information will be private except for the location of the car. Then you'll need a profile photo, and this can be a picture of yourself or maybe a picture of, if it's a business, maybe of a logo. Just try to pick something that looks professional. You're gonna need to enter a cell phone number. You're also gonna need license information, so the number, the expiration, and the issue date. And then you're also going to need the car photos. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do before we get started is go take those pictures. So I'm gonna go through some quick tips for taking your car photos, and I'm gonna show you what Turo's suggestions are. Number one is take clear pictures of your car. They should be clear and crisp. This is supposed to be a business, and so it needs to look as professional as possible. So you don't, for example, want to take a blurry picture in a supermarket parking lot. That's just not going to give you the most opportunity to have that car rented. Number two is orient your car naturally. I know that sometimes you can take these sort of sideways, sexy pictures of cars. However, you have to be careful when doing that because it could look sloppy or unprofessional. You can take sideways, just make sure that they're angled naturally. So the next step is to step back a bit away from the car so that the entire car can come out in the shot and the guest can get the entire full picture. So the next tip is a common photography tip, which is that you take the pictures in the early morning or early evening hours, as this will give you the best lighting possible. And the last tip is to never use stock photo. Remember, one of the interesting things about Turo is that renters get to go on the website and book the actual car that they're looking at, as opposed to when you go to a regular rental company and you're just seeing stock photos. And when you get there, not only are you not getting that actual car, but you may not even get that brand sometimes. And the neat thing again about Turo is that you get to see the actual car you're renting before you rent it. So we want to make sure that we show what that car actually is. So never use a stock photo. So those were the Turo tips. Some tips that I can add to that is to try to have a nice background. If there's maybe a beach near you, a park, a nice hotel or community entrance, and if you want to get some ideas, just go ahead and open Turo and take a look at some of the other pictures that come up that catch your attention. Okay, so if you're ready to go, then let's get started on the step-by-step creation of the account. So the first thing you're going to do is go to Turo.com. You're going to click on Become a Host, then on Get Started, and finally on Sign Up at the bottom. Here you're going to be given an option. You can continue with your Apple, your Google email, Facebook email, or an email address. Here you're going to enter your first name, last name, email address, and a password. You're going to agree to the terms of service and click sign up. Now here it's telling you that it's gonna take about 10 minutes and what you'll need. But as we know from the list I gave you earlier, there's a little bit more you're gonna need. So hopefully you did gather all those things. So go ahead and click start. So here's where you're gonna enter where your car is gonna be located. And we can get into that a little bit later, but basically you're going to have the option of allowing renters to pick up the car at a certain location. And you're also going to have the option later of designating what delivery spots you're willing to provide. In this case, they just want to know where the car is going to be located. So the next field is where you'll enter the VIN number, and you'll check the box that states my model year is 1981 or later, and you'll click Save VIN. That's going to pull up your car information and ask you some few additional questions. In this case, it's asking for the odometer, the transmission type, whether automatic or manual, and the trim, and then the style. And then it wants you to certify that you've paid all applicable taxes on the purchase of this vehicle. So you'll go ahead and select yes. And then they want you to certify that, since this is a requirement, that the car has never had a branded or salvage title. So go ahead and click that checkbox and then click next. Next, we're gonna add the profile photo. So if you're going to be delivering the cars yourself, then you may want to add a photo of yourself. That way the renters know who they're going to be seeing, and it just makes them a little bit more comfortable. But you don't have to. Like I said, if you have a logo or just a stock car picture that you like, it could be anything you like. And you can use a Facebook photo or upload a photo. So we will choose just a random picture in this case and click next. You're going to enter your mobile number here, and it's going to ask you if you want updates via text message. That's up to you if you want to get those. If not, you'll get them through email, and also the Turo app will send you notifications. So once you do that, it's going to send you a verification code. You go ahead and enter it, click next. Now it's asking you for your driver's license information. So go ahead and enter the state, driver's license number, country, I guess, in others' case. Your first name, middle, last name, the expiration date, date of birth. So once you've entered it, go ahead and click on next. So here it's asking you what your goals are with renting this car out. This doesn't really affect anything on the site. I'm thinking it's just Turo just kind of wanting to have an idea. So for example, the first one is, what is your primary financial goal for sharing this car on Turo? So you want to just cover your car payment, generate some side income, expand an existing business, etc. So just go ahead and pick the best answer. The next one is, how often do you or your family currently use this car? And it's never, rarely, once a week, few days per week, etc. And how often do you want to share your car? Not sure yet, just curious, rarely, etc. So just go ahead and fill these options in and select next. So the next step is asking you about the availability of your car. So the first thing we see here is, how much advance notice do you need before a trip starts? And so this one's asking you specifically relating to the home location. So if your car is parked at, let's say, your home or whatever location you're going to designate as its home location, where renters can, if they choose to not have delivery, can just go pick it up. So what it's asking you is, how much advance notice do you need at that location? So can somebody rent the car, for example, to pick it up in 2 hours or 6 hours or a day? So you'll see throughout these pages that Turo always gives you a recommended option, and it gives you a brief explanation as to why. So for example, here it recommends 1 day, which means that a person can book a car to pick up within 24 hours. And then you'll see on the right, it gives you some additional tips saying, hey, we recommend 1 day. However, 51% of trips at home locations are booked on shorter notice than your current requirement of 1 day, which means that 51% of people are booking cars wanting to pick them up in less than 24 hours. And this may or may not work for you. For example, you may be working, and so you need at minimum 8 or 10 or 12 hours to get the car ready, maybe to be there for the handoff, whatever the case is. So you have to sort of figure out what works for you. The next question is trip duration. What's the shortest and longest possible trip you'll accept? So again, Turo's recommendation is 1 day. Now it also gives you an additional filter so that if you do pick 1 day, it does let you require a 2-day minimum for trips that start Friday or Saturday. So for example, if a person books a trip on Sunday, any day, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that trip can be 1 day. But if they rent it on a Friday or a Saturday, then it must be 2 days. What I do want to say is that it's something you got to think about, because if, for example, you're paying someone $50 to handle the drop off, pickup, check-in, check-out, washing the car, maybe even checking the oil, then it doesn't make sense to have the minimum 1 day, because you're going to be getting $50 minus whatever Turo takes, and you're going to have to pay that right back out to the person who's handling the car for you. So as much as we would like to be able to set it to the minimum so that we can get as many bookings as possible, you do have to play with that, because you can end up losing money. Ideally, you want to set that to at least like 3 days, sometimes even, depending on the type of car, even 5 days, so that you're not spending as much money in the turnaround of these cars, because you have to clean them every time, you have to pick them up or drop them off, assuming that they're being delivered. You have to maintain them. And so just keep that in mind. Just play around with the numbers you're going to be charging, and whether you're going to be doing the work or paying someone else for it, and what makes sense for you. If you're doing the work yourself, if you're picking up the car yourself and dropping it off and washing it yourself, then maybe you don't care that you just get $50 or $80 to be able to rent it that 1 day. So you have to decide that based on your situation. Then it also asks you for a maximum trip duration. I would assume that unless you're needing this car for other reasons, that you set it to the max available. That's like a host dream come true if somebody rents your car for an entire month. So you got it washed once, picked it up and delivered it once, but yet you made an entire month worth of rent on it. So go ahead and choose your options, and you can always change these. And most likely you will be making some tweaks as you go along, as you see how things function and what works best for you. So when you're done, go ahead and click next. Now the next step, it's going to ask you for some information about your car. You're gonna enter your license plate number, the state of the license plate, and you're gonna check some of these boxes for some of the car features. So for example, GPS, USB charger, Android, anything that's relevant, and try to make sure that you get these right, because you're only hurting yourself if you miss out on checking any of these features that your car actually has. So the next thing you have to enter is your description. And again, to best optimize your profile, you're gonna wanna make this as professional as possible. So while you can just go in and say, hey guys, this is my car, it's super nice ride, check it out, you're gonna love it, I suggest you make your description as professional as possible. So I'm sure most of us would probably now sit here for like an hour trying to figure out how to get this written. So I'm gonna show you something that's gonna save you tons of time. So it's asking us to enter a description that tells guests what makes your car unique and why they'll love driving it. We're gonna copy that. So we're gonna go to chat.openai.com. And it's gonna ask you to either log in if you already have a login or sign up. So go ahead and sign up, it's free. And if you haven't heard of ChatGPT, I have some other videos on this, so you may wanna check those out. So basically we're gonna enter our question into ChatGPT and we're gonna say, hey, please write me a description that says XYZ. And it's gonna write it for us. And we may just have to tweak a word here and there. So we're gonna go ahead and ask it to give us that description. In my case, I just picked a random car, 2021 Kia. In your case, you're gonna enter your car and we're gonna say, can you please write a description about a 2021 Kia that tells renters what makes this car unique and why they'll love renting and driving it. And so you can see that it goes ahead and writes the entire description for you. So you're gonna wanna copy that and paste it into your description. You go to that bottom right corner of the window, you can click and hold and drag it to make it bigger so that you can better edit it. You're gonna wanna read it through and just tweak it a little bit, maybe change some words. So maybe change the word renters to you. So inside the cabin, you will appreciate, that sort of thing. So just keep going through, changing, making some of those edits. But as you can see, it did all the work for you and you at least now can just delete or add as needed or tweak, but you're not sitting there writing from scratch, which I think is sometimes the toughest part. So if you're done with that, then click next. Now we're going into the car photos. This is where you're gonna upload your photos. And again, it's giving you some quick tips here. So go ahead and just make sure that you did follow those suggestions and click add photos when ready. Now you're gonna click on the add photo and just add all of your photos. And of course, you're gonna wanna make sure that the first picture is probably like a front picture or a nice side angle. In other words, I mean, I think it's probably obvious. You don't want to put an interior picture as your first picture. So once you're done, click next. The next step is to set up your payout account. So Stripe is now their payment provider. So it's telling you here that in the next step, it'll verify your identity. And once your account is verified, you'll be able to provide them with direct deposit information. So go ahead and click set up account. You see that it's taking you now to a separate Stripe page. So here you're going to choose whether you're an individual or a business and click continue. You're going to enter your first and last name, date of birth, and your social, and click continue. So it's telling you that it's verifying, and it may verify immediately, although it's saying it could take up to a minute, or it may tell you that it's taking a while and that they'll notify you at a later time, which was my case here. And so you just click on agree and submit. And now we're at the next step, which is basically them giving you some safety and quality standards. So just go ahead and read through these. And it's basically saying that they expect you to keep your car well maintained. You are going to be required to pass an annual inspection to list the car. And these are simple. You can actually even do these virtually. We actually just did one virtually where you get on a Zoom call and they go through a list of things that they want to check. You know, they're checking for tires, brake lights, seat belts, that sort of thing. So you don't actually even have to take it to a place. I mean, aside, you should obviously be doing your separate maintenance on your own, but at least as far as the Turo inspections, you can just do it virtually and it's like $35 what they charge. And then once it's done, they'll give you a report that you can just upload to Turo. Then it goes on and reminds you about cleaning and refueling your car before every trip. And it also reminds you that Turo prohibits the renting of the car on another platform. There's other platforms similar to Turo. And I don't mean Uber or Lyft, other car sharing platforms. So go ahead and click on agree and continue. And we are now at the final step. It's letting you know that up next, you'll be able to edit your pricing, availability, and trip preferences. And it asks you to click on the checkbox to agree to the Turo Terms of Services. So I highly suggest that you open the Turo Terms of Services and you read through them. I mean, some of these are very important. They deal with what kind of fees you're gonna be able to charge for certain things, whether you can charge for parking at airports. It's gonna deal with, more importantly, with insurance issues, when you get paid, how you get paid, when you don't get paid. So you wanna make sure that you I know it's long, but you definitely wanna make sure that you read through those and familiarize yourself with them. So once you do that, go ahead and check the box and click submit. So then you should get this pop-up message, lets you know you're almost done. And it mentions that you're gonna need to attend a virtual orientation. So I did not need to do this. So I'm guessing this is something new that they're requiring. But I'm gonna go ahead and click through as much as possible to show you what this entails. So go ahead and click attend a virtual orientation. So then it takes you to this other page where it allows you to pick a time, a date and time for this session. And I assume this is a Zoom session between yourself and a Turo specialist, just for them to maybe verify some information. I'm not sure. Again, I didn't have to do this. So I don't know if it's just a Turo specialist giving some information and giving you the opportunity to ask questions, or if you're actually having to speak to them. So go ahead and choose your time and click on register. Once you do that, it will take you back to continue. So go ahead and exit out of that. You can click up there where it says finish your listing. So now you're in your vehicle listing portal. The first part we'll go into is the pricing and discounts. So go ahead and click on that. And it's gonna give you some information here, just read through it. It's letting you know that Turo has what they call automatic pricing. And what that means is that they set the price for you based on whether it's a weekend, a holiday, supply and demand, if there's local events, etc. So on a number of things. But even though it has automatic pricing, it also lets you set a minimum and a maximum. So the first option is whether you're gonna want that automatic pricing on or off. Again, I suggest you probably leave it on for now and just kind of see how things go. And as you get familiar with everything, you can maybe come back and tweak it as needed. So next, it's showing you what the minimum and maximum price are currently set to. So even though the pricing is automatic, what that does is it lets you set a minimum and max. So for example, you could say, I don't ever want to rent my car for under $40, no matter what circumstances. So you can go ahead and make your minimum $40. And what it does is that whenever it's setting that automatic pricing, it won't go lower than $40. Same thing with the maximum. Then the next thing, you'll see that it says custom pricing. And if you click on manage pricing on calendar, it takes us back to the calendar we were in, and it shows us that we can click onto individual dates. And if you click on that top right where it says edit, it lets us edit that date. And you can actually say, well, I want to change that for the whole week. Like I know there's a crazy event in my town and I know prices are going to be through the roof. And for some reason, Turo may not have caught it, or I just don't want to risk it. And so I know that I can change my minimum to $50 or $60 for those days. And so you would come here, you click edit, and then you'd say until, and let's say it ends in a week, so you would do it until a week later. You also can see that there's an option for unavailability. So this is where you're gonna enter, let's say you're on vacation and you're just not gonna be able to have that car available for people to rent because you have no one to drop it off or pick it up. Or if you need to use your car for that period of time, whatever the reason is, this is where you would designate that. You would click on add an unavailable period and select what that period is. So you would pick a start date and time and an end date and time. And when you're ready, click set unavailability and you'll see it grayed out on the calendar. You see it there at the bottom. Now you'll also see all the other prices. So for example, you could see all of the different prices that Turo's automatic pricing is setting. You see sometimes, typically it's at 35, but then here on this Saturday, for some reason, it's up to 56 and then 53, 44. So this is, like I said, it's basing it on a number of factors. So another thing I want to mention is if you click on this little link on the bottom right, it says add trips to Google Calendar. You'll want to click allow, open, or just open. It'll let you select what calendar, whether Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Outlook. And it'll let you add this Turo calendar to the calendar of your choice. And so that's pretty neat. You get to see when your cars are being booked right on your calendar. So now if we go back to pricing and discounts, the next thing we see is this last minute boost pricing. And what this does is, again, automatically Turo can boost your price for same day bookings. So if you have same day bookings, then you have the option here of saying, hey, for a same day booking, go ahead and boost the price by, and their recommended amount is 5%. And this is based on the fact that they say that guests searching at the last minute are 2 times more likely to book. So they feel like upping your price by that percentage can get you that extra money. So the next thing is discounts. And discounts are set to, as they say, encourage guests to plan ahead and book longer trips. Again, their recommended values are already set there as defaults, but you can edit them. So a 3-day, 7-day, and a 30-day discount. So go ahead and leave those or modify them as you'd like. The next thing is the early bird discount. And this is to encourage guests to book trips in advance by offering an early bird discount. They recommend 5% for any bookings done 7 days in advance or more. So go ahead and click save when you're done. The next section is location and delivery. So you don't have to offer delivery. However, I would think that you would be limiting yourself significantly if you didn't. And delivery could be, say, allowing the renter to choose a custom delivery location within a specific range, or delivering to the nearest airports, which is where I think you'd probably be getting most of your business from. But again, you don't have to offer delivery depending on your circumstance. So it's giving you its little tip here. Go ahead and click next. It's letting you know that you can choose your own delivery fees, and you'll keep 90% of these fees. And the nice thing for these fees is that, for example, let's say you are not having someone take you to drop off the car and pick you up. That means you're actually paying an Uber, and it can cost you anywhere from $10 to $60, $70 to get that Uber. So you're able to charge that delivery fee, which would apply only for those people that want delivery, which means that you don't have to play with putting that into your daily rate. So click next. And again, it's just reiterating the fact that offering delivery really does help you earn more from your car. So here in the right, you'll see the home location, and you can see that it's already defaulting to that address that it asked us for in the beginning. So you can always change it there, but this is the address that will be shown to renters once the booking is confirmed. And I know some people have some questions about whether they should be putting their home address. My suggestion is you try not to. Try to maybe set it at a nearby retail center, or if you live in an apartment building, maybe out in the guest parking area. If you live in a community, maybe outside the community, something so that you're not actually having someone pick up the car at your house. I think there's some hosts that do that, but I can never imagine doing that. My suggestion is to not put your home address there. But again, I know some people that do, so it's up to you. And so on the map is showing you your location, that blue, and obviously I have it blurred for privacy reasons, but the blue pin is showing you the home location. So if you pan around the map, you'll see that there's some other pins, and these designate airports or train stations, certain hotels that are maybe common booking locations. So you can click on one of these pins. In this case, I'm gonna click on an airport, and it'll tell you add delivery location, it'll tell you the airport, and it'll ask you to select a delivery fee. So some hosts may live close to an airport, and in order to get the most bookings, they offer free delivery. So you really have to see if that makes sense for you, because like I said, if you're delivering the car yourself, which means you're getting in an Uber to come back and it's costing you $30, $40 to do that each way, then it may not make sense to have free delivery. So you have to play with this based on your specific needs. Typically, the delivery fees that I've seen are $100 to $120. So if, for example, if you live fairly close and let's say your Turo trip is going to be $60 round trip, then maybe you can set your delivery fee to $60, maybe $70, and this will make you more competitive than those that have it at the $120. So go ahead and pick your delivery fee. Then it's asking you for your check-in method. And I can get into more details about this on a later video, or if you have any questions, just put them in the comments. But basically, you can meet your guests in person, or you can have a lockbox where you will leave your keys in the lockbox somewhere hidden around the car, probably under the car, and you will provide the code to the guests once you do the check-in process. Or if your car is eligible for Turo Go, which means that you have a service that lets you remotely lock and unlock your car, then you can go that route, which means that the guests will themselves just go in through the app, do the check-in process, and unlock the car themselves. And you don't have to be involved at all. If you do have the option to do that with your car, then I highly suggest you do that, because it makes it very hands-off. Whereas otherwise, you would have to communicate with them, verify that they uploaded their license prior to you providing that code. So in my case, I used Turo Go, and so we never see the renters. They just arrive at the car, they go through the Turo check-in process, and they're able to then unlock the car. The keys are left in an RFID pouch, which blocks the signal so that you can actually keep the car locked and then keep the key inside the pouch, inside the glove box. So that means that somebody can't, even though the key's inside, somebody can't just come and open the car. And so the only way that the car will be open is either remotely through my app or through the Turo check-in process that the renter's gonna do. And so then they have this other option there. I can't think of any other possibilities, but you do have that option. Then we have the additional instructions section, which is optional. And this is something that guests will see once the trip is booked. So in this section, you can enter something like, hey, thanks for booking. Please look out for a message with all necessary details. If you requested delivery to an airport, please provide your airline and flight information so that the car can be parked as close as possible to you. Thanks. So you can put that depending on if it's relevant for you. And I'll go into a little bit of the detail on that in a bit, but that's an optional area. So you're gonna make your selection. And again, you can tweak these at a later time. You're gonna go ahead and add any other delivery locations. So guest location is where you can offer delivery to the location of a renter's choice. So if you wanna click into that, go ahead and click edit. It's gonna ask you to enable it. It's gonna ask you to enter a fee. And then it's gonna ask you what the maximum distance from your home location. So for example, I'll charge $100, say for anything up to 20 miles away from my home location, or 15 miles, or whatever the case is. So just go ahead and make that selection and click on save. And the last thing here is a delivery discount. So it gives you the option, it says to attract more guests by offering free delivery for longer trips. So if you want to do that, go ahead and click on edit and change it from do not offer to offering free delivery for a trip of 2 days or longer, 3 days or longer, and it goes all the way up to 2 weeks or longer. And again, you have to play with your numbers and see what works for you. And also you're going to be able to come back and tweak this as you see what works. So the next section is guest instructions. So we'll go ahead and click on that. The first thing is asking for is pickup and return instructions. In this case, I would write something like, thanks for booking. Again, the same thing that we mentioned before. If you requested delivery to an airport, please provide your airline and flight information so that the car can be parked as close as possible to you. So in my case, for example, when the car is being booked at an airport, I have my CarSync account set up, which I will get into in the next video, to where it sends automated messages depending on what airport, what car is being booked. And what it does is it sends these automated messages to the renter asking for the flight information. And so this does a few things. One is that it lets you park the car closest. So you would go onto the airport site and you would see what terminal they're arriving in, and you would choose the garage closest to their terminal so that you can park the car as close as possible to their terminal. And that's just, you know, trying to go above and beyond in customer service. I mean, it's not a requirement, but I think it's something that you can do that would make the experience a much better one for the renter. But also it helps you review the flight and make sure that it hasn't been delayed, since sometimes they may not have service or they just forget to let you know. So it also just lets you verify that the time that they chose is appropriate, because there may be instances where they randomly picked an hour or two after their arrival time, which means that you may not even be there yet with the car and they may already be ready to pick up the car. Again, while it's not your fault that they booked it for 8 and they got there at 6 to pick it up, it's still a bad experience that you want to try to avoid as much as possible. Some are not going to write a bad review for that because it's not your fault, but others will actually go on there and say it was horrible. I booked the car and had to wait 2 hours because I picked the wrong time. And if it was a rental company, the car probably would have been there and I could have gotten it 2 hours earlier. So that's the sort of stuff you want to avoid. So you always just want to make sure that you can do whatever you can on your end to make their trip the most pleasant and streamlined as possible. So you're going to want to go ahead and just enter whatever information. And again, you can change this later. Just make sure you do have something in here before you do get a booking. And if you don't, it's also not a huge deal. They will typically message you, or you can message them the instructions. The next one is a welcome message, and it sort of gives you a recommendation as to what to put in there, so you can see that and tweak it if you'd like. If not, for now, just you can copy that exact text in there. And the last section here is the car guide. This is where you're going to enter any quirks that your car may have. So for example, how to deal with the convertible top, how to put your car in park or shift the gears, etc. So then we're going to move into the details section. So here you're going to see some of the details you've already entered, and you just want to make sure that they look good. Enter any missing information. In the additional features section, you can add in any additional features, such as maybe Sirius XM radio, anything that your car has that you don't see in the top features options. The next section is the car description, which we already entered while we were setting up the account. So there's a few other things you're going to want to enter into that description, and that's based on some of Turo's requirements. The first one has to do with parking. And so in my case, I'm just advising them that they are going to have to be responsible for parking at the airport. So typically what that means is that the car gets left, you leave the parking ticket there, and so they're responsible for paying that parking on their way out of the airport. And then they're gonna do the same thing on the way back in, and you're gonna be responsible for it. But as long as you're putting it in the description, then that's okay. And you wanna do something different, just make sure you read the terms of service, because Turo does have some specific requirements as to what you can do with parking. The next item is letting them know, reminding them that they do not have to stop at the tolls. They can just keep going through because it does have a transponder, and informing them that they'll just get billed at the end for whatever they use. And per Turo's requirements, you're gonna wanna put in that transponder number there. Something else that you may wanna do is, if you know you're gonna have a lot of bookings by renters that speak other languages, you could just put a little note in the bottom advising them of certain rules in another language, or you can have some notes in the bottom in a few other different languages asking them to please let you know if they speak another language and would like to communicate in that language. And I say this because I actually had someone who spoke Portuguese, and because they're an international client, we ended up texting through WhatsApp, and because it was becoming difficult to understand each other, I actually said, please speak to me in your language, and I was just copying and pasting into Google Translate and pasting it back so that we can communicate efficiently. So you could put a message there just saying, please let me know what your language preference is, and then you would know that they can just speak to you in that language and you use a translator. And again, this is not common. Most of the time you're not speaking, especially if you have these automated messages that go out and give them all the details that they need. So this last section is a frequently asked questions section, which you can use to, again, add in a lot of questions that you get frequently asked, either specifically about your car or your process. I typically add these details in that automated message that goes out to the renter as soon as they confirm the booking. But you can enter some here as well, since some people just may be looking for it here. So go ahead and add any that you'd like in there. So the next section is the guidelines section, and this is where you're going to share any information about what is and isn't permitted. For example, they give an example here: car seats and booster seats are not permitted, as this is a two-seater vehicle. Now you want to be careful with this one. You want to make sure you, again, read those terms of services to make sure that you're putting something in here that Turo allows. Because just because you have it here, for example, in the past, people were able to charge $100 automatically, say if the car was brought back dirty. Now there's limitations on that. You know, Turo has had to tweak their rules and guidelines based on what kinds of things they've seen. So those things have changed. And so you want to make sure whatever you're putting in there is backed up by Turo. Because again, just because you have it there, it does not mean that that's going to be what Turo abides by should something occur. So for example, you can write something like, fees will be assessed automatically if the following is not met. And you could talk about smoking. So it's a non-smoking car, please do not smoke. You can add as many details as you want. So you can say things like, please return the car without trash, without dirt, spills, etc. And you can also mention the gas. So you're being given the car with a full tank of gas and you must return it with a full tank. Otherwise, they will be charged the amount of the gas you had to put in, plus an additional $10 inconvenience fee. And finally, the last part is asking for the exterior color of the car. So go ahead and choose it there and then click save. Next, we'll move into extras. This is where you can enter things that the renters can pay up front for. So for example, they can prepay fuel, which means that they can return the car with any level of gas. You can also charge, for example, to provide a car seat for the trip, or maybe some beach gear. So they already have some presets there that you can look through. So I'll give you an example of adding some beach gear. So you go ahead and type up there and search for it, and you'll see it pops up. You select, you have one set of that. You can type in the description, something like this: enjoying beach time, save time and reduce hassle by renting a beach umbrella, beach blanket, 2 beach chairs and a cooler. And then you can designate the price, again, whether it's per day or per trip. And I've based this just on, going around and seeing what other hosts are doing, get a feel for how much they're charging, etc. So once you're done, you'll click save. The next section is distance included. So this is where you're going to designate how many miles you're going to allow the car to be driven daily. So the first part is letting you designate whether you want to allow unlimited distance. Obviously, it may get you more bookings because you get a special badge, and when people are searching for cars, they may search for unlimited mileage, and so you would pop up as opposed to others who don't have that. So you have to decide whether you think that's worth it for you, and if so, just go ahead and select it here, turn it on or off. If you don't have unlimited distance turned on, then you're going to select in this next section how many miles per day you want to include. And again, it's giving you its recommendations. So it's recommending 200 miles per day, but it's telling you that offering 250 plus miles per day opens you up to an additional 10% more bookings. So you're going to decide what you want there. And the next part gives you information about the additional distance fee. You used to be able to designate your own fee that you would charge per mile if the renter were to go over the miles included per day. But now that's something that Turo calculates themselves. So if you click on the how is the additional fee calculated, it'll provide an explanation, and they let you know that the percentage you'll receive is based on your protection plan. So if you have the 75%, then you'll get the 75% of that amount. So make your edits and click save. The next section is the vehicle protection section. And this is where you're gonna choose the plan that you want for coverage. So you can see it tells you what your current plan is and what it covers and what it offers. In this case, it's the 75 plan, which tells you that you're going to be earning 75% of the trip. It tells you the liability coverage. It tells you that Turo pays 100% of eligible damage costs above the deductible. It shows you that the deductible is $250 and that they offer a $30 per day replacement vehicle as a reimbursement during the repair. Aside from knowing this, what you want to know is, well, it says Turo pays 100% of eligible damage costs. So you want to make sure that you know what the eligible damage is. So make sure that you go ahead and read the legal liability and vehicle protection for hosts. Go ahead and click that link so you can make sure you read all of the details, and then you can decide on the plan that you want. So you can see that it gives you a lot of detail, shows you all the plans, but also goes into detail into what each one does and doesn't cover. And then it also responds to a lot of frequently asked questions. So go ahead and read through that. And then you can go in and click on change plan to see all of the plans, and you can click through each one by one. You can see specifically what each item means. So for example, you can see things like what's a deductible, what's exterior wear and tear, what do you mean by replacement vehicle, etc. So once you've done that, and you've decided, then go ahead and pick the plan you'd like. In this case, just as an example, I'm choosing a plan that has a higher deductible. So it's giving me a warning, letting me know, hey, you're choosing a plan that has a higher deductible than your current plan, meaning that if there's physical damage to your car during a trip, you'll be responsible for paying, in this case, $1,625 deductible. So that means that any damage that happens up to $1,625, I have to cover, no matter who's at fault. So there can be some confusion about that, and I won't go into details now. I'll do a separate just insurance video on that, but just know that there may be times when you may be able to get the renter's insurance to cover certain costs, but for the most part, you need to assume that this is a deductible you're going to pay. So go ahead and click on I understand. So it's going to give you a message that lets you know that the changes are confirmed and that existing trips will not be affected. This will only be applicable to future bookings. Go ahead and close that. So now, if you click on the trip history section, you'll see that obviously there's nothing there now, but this is where you'll see your trip history for that specific car. Next, we can click on trip preferences. So here you're going to designate the locations where renters can book your car instantly. So if you don't have this set, then it will send you a request telling you that somebody wants to rent your car. I suggest that you do allow some instant bookings just because you may be losing out on some renters who just don't want to deal with having to wait for someone to get back to them, and they want to be able to rent the car instantly. So this is where you would designate that, and you would say whether you want to allow instant booking at the home location, delivery, and the guest location. The next section is advance notice. So it's asking you to set how soon guests can book. Again, we set some of this in the beginning, I believe, but here you're going to designate the advance notice that you want for a booking at each different location. So you can say, well, for the home location, I need just a few hours because maybe the car is already sitting there, it's clean, so it's just a matter of somebody coming and picking it up. Whereas if it's an airport location or some other custom location that the renter chooses, then you need at least, let's say, a day because you may, for example, have to work or, whatever the reason is. So that's why you can tweak those differently. So the next section is the trip buffer. And what that does is that it lets you add a period of time that you want in between trips. So for example, you may say, I need like a 3 or 6 hour period in between trips so that I can get the car cleaned, make sure everything's good with it, pick it up, drop it off. So that's where you would designate. Just think about how those would work best for you and designate those times. The next section is the trip duration, which we already set up as we were doing the profile. And the last section is just designating that you will allow longer term trips. So go ahead and make your edits and then click save. And the last section is the safety inspection section. So we'll go ahead and click on that, and you'll see that a message pops up letting you know what we mentioned earlier, which is that all hosts must submit an annual safety inspection. And it goes through and gives you all the information, how it works, what happens if you don't pass, or if you don't submit by your due date, etc. So just go ahead and look through that and then exit out once you're done with that. So now I'm just going to show you a little bit of what the portal looks like. So again, we're here in the specific listing of a car, but if you click on listings, you would see all of the cars you have listed in there. If you click on trips, you'll see all of your trips. Under the booked section, you'll see all of the upcoming bookings. And in the history tab, you'll see all of your past trips. And you can filter by either all vehicles or just for specific vehicles. And if you click on inbox, this is where you'll see all of your messages. You'll also see messages between you and the renter in the individual trip at the very bottom of the trip. And under notifications is where you'll see any like Turo notifications. Now, if you click on vehicles at the top, this is where again, you'll see all of your vehicles that are listed. And if you wanted to go into the listing like we were in, you would either click on the picture or click on edit listing, and it would take you in there. If you wanted to see what the listing looks like, you can click on the view listing. Now you can see when I went in here that it has this little pop-up letting me know that I have to do this little 15-minute course about disinfecting your vehicle. So when ready, just go ahead and click on start the course and just go through it. Next to listings is claims, which is where you'll see any claims. Next to that is Turo Go, which is where it will show you if you have any vehicles that are eligible for the Turo Go, which again is the remote locking feature. So next to that is a section called host settings. And the reason why it's here is because it applies to all vehicles. And that's why it's here as opposed to in the individual listing that we were in. And so this is where you're going to designate the pickup and return hours that you're available. So you can either set it to I'm always available, and so you would change this toggle here, or you can go in and designate daily availability. Just remember that if you change this to always available, that you can end up getting a booking at say 4 in the morning. And if you have the instant book, then you're gonna have to go in and cancel that booking. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that if you have the always available instant booking and you have, let's say, a very short advance notice, like an hour, that somebody could book your car at 2 in the morning to pick up at 3 in the morning. Just keep that in mind because I did run into that situation at one point. So just make sure that if you are changing this availability, that you are playing with the fact that you have instant booking on and the trip buffers and advanced notice settings. And at the end, you can also set any unavailable dates. So now going back to the top again, if you click on the business section, this is where you're going to see earnings, performance, and your reviews. So in the earnings section, you're able to see the earnings by year. You can filter by the car or the year. Right now, this is a new profile, and so obviously it doesn't have any information. So I'm going to be doing a separate one where I'm going to go into mine so I can show some of these numbers and show what it looks like. And if you scroll to the bottom, you'll be able to see under resources, click on view transaction history, and it actually shows line by line telling you when it billed the renter and then when it paid you, deposited that amount into your account, etc. Performance lists out things related to, for example, your response rate, how many trips you've accepted, and if you have instant booking, then obviously that would be 100 unless you canceled. It also tells you the date that you're going to be assessed to see if you qualify to become an all-star host. And so for example, in this case, it's telling me that April 15th is the next assessment. And if you want to know more about that, you can click on the learn about the program and see what sort of perks you're getting by being an all-star host and what the requirements are. And in the last tab, you can see your reviews. All right, so that is it. However, you can see that it still says pending. And so that's because there's still a few things missing. For example, you have to make sure that you finalize that Stripe setup to get your direct deposit set up. I'm assuming you may have to complete that virtual orientation before they list it. I'm not sure. Again, that's something new, so I can't tell you for sure if they'll list it, subject to you doing that at some point. You also want to make sure you do the cleaning and disinfecting little class that they have there. Super simple. So just make sure you get all those items done and your listing should move out of the pending status. All right, so you should now be good to go. If you have any questions, just remember to leave them in the comments. I'm going to be doing future videos about different things. For example, the insurance, going deeper into the insurance issues. I'm going to go into my earnings. And I'm also going to be doing one just like this this one about CarSync, guiding you step by step through the process of setting up the CarSync account, which is free, and setting up some of these automated templates to send out these automated messages, as well as seek reimbursement for your tolls, which is a really nice time-saving feature. So again, if you have any questions, just let me know, and good luck.